Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. And today we're going to actually touch on a topic that we've covered before that I had titled relationship retirement or emotional retirement. I like the sound of emotional retirement better, but at the same time too, you can call it relationship retirement because it's about you building relations and having certain relationships in your life by that golden hour, if you want to call it. And so first, I want to give a shout out because me redoing or reintroducing, coming back to this topic, kind of had a spotlight shine on it because another content creator who I actually kind of follow and kind of respect the material that they're putting out. Shout out to Mediocre Tutorial and Reviews, the MT Army, as he likes to say, and shout out, my condolences to him. He just did a video on the passing of his dad, and much respect to his channel for what he does and puts out there. Positive light, positive image for people trying to build themselves up, women and men, and just kind of showing how important it is for family. And I just wanted to kind of, use that as an opening to expand on the fact that he just went through a situation with his dad passing, and for anyone who's got to that stage where they started losing some of their immediate family members, their dad, their mom, or anything like that, or whatever the case is, in his situation, it was a blessing that he was able to, for his dad, that his son is able to be there to actually make sure that in his final days that there was someone there to take care of you, to someone there to whenever you need it, you could say, hey, listen, I need you to come, I need some help, and that they're there for you. And this dives 100% right into what I mentioned about emotional retirement or relationship retirement, that a lot of people don't think about. And so I just really want to point that out and point out the fact that that was a shining example of someone having that. And the things that people don't really pay attention to these days is that you have a lot of men out there who are like this too. You have a lot of women out there, and I think there's probably more women out there right now that don't realize it, as they say, the phrase hitting the wall, don't realize how important it is to get away from this whole lifestyle of spending money, let's just going from one person to the next. There's some guys do it too, but the truth is a lot of guys can't afford to live that life, not only just financially, but I mean in terms of, when I say can't afford to live their life, I mean they don't have the options to just run from women to women. All men know, when a lot of women may not know this, but there's a small percentage of guys, maybe 20% of men, at least definitely in the US, who are able to just go bounce around from from girl to girl to girl, whatever the case is, with no problem, and just have their fun, this and that. The majority of the guys are not like that, so they aren't thinking on that way. But there's a lot of women who think like that because they have those options, and it's just it's not about an opinion. It's not about he thinks this, he thinks that. It's just the facts of life that when you have options, you tend to utilize those options more so. But sometimes in life, we might realize that or forget that sometimes having a bunch of options is not always a great thing. And so in the case of a lot of people, that causes them to not focus on things like emotional retirement. And that's very important. A lot of people worry about, quote unquote, getting the bag, about having their finances up, and that's always important too. And I definitely think that a lot of people are starting to kind of be aware of, well, how am I going to secure my future financially? Some people taking shortcuts these days, some people whatever, but everyone's trying to get there. A lot of people are doing it the wrong way, but everyone's trying to get there because they understand no one wants to have to be working to you're really old and to the point where it's hard. But the thing that no one really pays attention to or not working towards nowadays, especially when they're chasing the bag, is emotional retirement. And that's a big deal. Because really what it comes down to is, what are you going to view in front of you that you've passed down, your legacy, viewing, just taking a look at your life, like standing back and look in front of you at your life, what you did, what you accomplished. It's not going to be how many businesses you had, this and that. That's great. But if there's no one to pass that down to, it's meaningless. But on top of that, there's a purpose behind it all, because when it all comes back full circle, it's It's your legacy in terms of relationships that you've made. And when I say relationships, I don't just mean hookup relationships, but I mean you creating a family, you bonding with friends, you bonding with extended family members, you having this whole empire, this whole community of people that when you get older, especially having that for the young dynamic, because it's not just the ones that are equal to you in age, your generation, it's about having the younger generation is just as important and more people in that younger generation. So when you get older, but especially your kids and grandkids, and when you get older, it's having somebody who's going to say, hey, listen, like, I just want you to picture this. You got these family functions like we all grew up with. You got grandma, you got grandpa making family dinner on a Sunday or a holiday. You got your parents there too, running around doing this and that, helping out. And then you're there as a little kid and you're like, you know what? Like, look at it. Everyone views grandpa and grandma as the king and the queen of the kingdom. Whatever they want, they get. And for them, their joy was seeing their grandkids run around, jump on their lap, ask them to tell them stories that you have stories for years. Because at that point, your grandparents are like 70s, 80 years old. They got stories to tell for years. And they're there to, the grandkids are there to absorb it. And you feel good because at that point in stage, if you are the grandparent, there's nothing else for you financially. It's just the only thing that's going to matter is your grandkids, your kids. Maybe your grandkids are at the age where they're about to have kids. And it's an amazing thing. You know what I mean? At that point, cause that's all you have at that point. You don't have a lot of time left. But being able to speak to the grandkids, be able to have them jump all over you, that's you seeing your legacy. The other part about it is knowing that they're actually there to take care of you. So rather than you being alone in an old folks home at 75 or up, you're sitting there on your big, comfy, lazy boy chair and watching whatever's on TV. A bunch of little kids running around the house. Your kids, the grandkids are running around the house. Your kids are doing the work. Which if you're in your 75, close to 80 years old, they're probably, maybe 55, 50, 65, whatever the case is, probably a bit younger. And they themselves are doing all the hard work. They're the ones preparing dinner, preparing the meal. Actually, all you're doing is sitting back, just watching and enjoying and knowing to yourself, I'm not inside some old folks home where there's some old lady or old man who's paid to take care of me, and they really could care less to be there, and they hate being there, and I'm not saying that all of them hate their job, but none of them like wiping the bottom of some old elderly person. You know what I mean? Let's be real about that. So that part is the part that when you just compare those two differences between you being in an old folks home with no one running around and you being in a comfortable chair with the TV on, with your kids running around, your grandkids running around, everyone's just having a good time, and they're like, remembering those days and sharing memories with you. Hey, grandpa, remember that time when, or hey, dad, hey, mom, remember that time when you were, this and that, and we did this and that, and you're just laughing, because we all know that when we meet up, even with our friends right now, if you're like in your 30s, your 40s, if you're 20s, and you talk with your friends about things you did in the past, you smile just about that. Yo, remember that time when we were doing this and blah, blah. So imagine how it feels for someone at that age when there's nothing left but your memories and family and enjoyment. People need to start preparing for have emotional retirement set up, preparing for that older age. No one's doing it. A lot of people are not doing it. They don't care. They want to live their life and have fun. Then afterwards, they want to then go, you know what? Like, I'm getting older. Come on, somebody, let's settle down. Let's make it work. It doesn't work like that. Just like financial retirement, you have to start when you're 20 to start building up for that. And maybe when you're 40 or 50 years old, 60 years old, you're able to do it. The sooner the better. It's not going to happen overnight. It takes at least a good 30 years or more to fulfill emotional retirement. And unlike financial retirement, where it does take a long time to do, it's possible to have financial retirement, and have stability on a whim. You know what I mean? You might have that lucky break, that lucky year. I'm not going to say lotto, but maybe, you have like a point where you're like, you know what? I've been working so many years. Now I'm going to buckle down and really, like, the next 5 years, I'm going to really buckle down. I'm going to save all my money. I'm going to buy a house. Maybe I'm going to start, really like putting away some money for some heavy investment. So that way I can sit back and maybe I can kind of, make things work. You know what I mean? You can kind of, backtrack on time, for lack of a better word, and really like make up for what you haven't done with financial retirement. Sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes. But emotional retirement, it requires a certain time frame that you cannot make that time up. It cannot be done, because part of it is your kids being old enough to take care of you. Part of it is being able to see your grandkids as long as they're alive. They don't have to be super old, but 1, 2, 3, 4 years old, 5 years old, running around while you have your, family gatherings, and you can say, you know what, like, look, that's how I know that my kids, I was successful with my kids because they had kids. And that's how you measure your success of your own kids, is that they have kids and they're taking care of them pretty well. And that's important. That comes with time, because you can't just fast forward generations of life. And in the general play out of it all is normally 20 years per generation. And I'm not saying that's an exact science, obviously, but generally speaking, if you go off that, then by the time you're, say, 75, your kids will be about 55. Their kids will be about, say, 35. Assuming that we're going by the 20 years. But the idea is that you, as a grandparent, say at like 65, you want to be having those memories, which is why at 65, your kids will be about 45 and the grandkids will be about 20. You want to be at an age range where you can see that. Now, I know that, around the time my grandmother was like 80, 85, I was in my probably mid 30s, mid to late 30s. And so my point is that you want to have that, and now I have kids of my own. You want to have that range where, you can see all that. You can partake in that. You can enjoy all that. See the empire that you have, and see that, that what you've done, what you've accomplished, your success played out in later generations, and knowing that it's going to continue, along with the aspect that they're going to take care of you. So it's two parts to that. It's not only just seeing what you've done, your legacy. It's about knowing that they come back around to take care of you, and keep you in a space that makes you feel happy to be alive. You know what I mean? That's very important. And taking you around on places, taking you on trips with the family, that's very important. So I know I stretched this out a long time, but, at the end of the day, it's about having that importance of that. And a lot of people aren't focusing on that. They aren't really trying to build that. And it's so important. And a lot of people are stuck in this whole 30 is the new 20, and it's not the new 20. People want to be stuck inside this hole. I want to have fun. I want to be with the latest pop culture. I want to be in with the trends. Stop trying to stay young in terms of, where your life is. And I don't mean that to like, you don't have a youthful mentality, but there's a stage you got to be at every age. Get away from that mentality that when people start putting out, you know what, everyone has their own pace. Everyone, when you do things at your own pace, that applies to some things. But when it comes to time, aging, kids, all that kind of stuff, no, that marker stays the same. It's always been the same. It's going to stay the same. It's going to always be the same. Now, you could have kids later on in life. Maybe you don't have them in your early 20s. You could have them at 40. That's fine. But the point is, if you're going to have them at 40, you should have been building a life so that way when you have those kids right at that time, boom, you're almost ready to retire. You're ready to give those kids everything, because now you don't have to work while you raise the kids, because you should be done with your work phase. Don't just be starting your work phase of your life around the same time you're having kids if you're having them at 40. But if you had them at 20 and you had to struggle during that time working and this and that, cool. Guess what? You got to grow up with them during that time. And now they're probably on their way to having grandkids around the time that you're retiring. My point is, make it a plan to make sure you have that in your life. Emotional retirement is real. Make sure that you actually, realize there's a time limit. Don't pretend that there's not. There is a time limit. Make sure you make it happen. Don't listen to the rest of the people who say that's not important. Don't listen to all those people too. I don't see a lot of men saying this, at least not in social media or on videos. I see a lot of women saying this, posting videos on this, but there are probably men who say this in real life too. You probably have, friends like that. So I'm not going to make it one-sided, who probably say things like, you don't need kids. Who cares about kids? Life is better without kids. You get more freedom, this and that. No, you don't. You don't have more freedom when you don't have kids. You have, because you're not looking at it from the scope of, from your entire life, we'll say from the point where you're of age, really doing things. So we'll say from 20 years old, because I like to break things down in blocks of 20, 0 to 20, 20 to 40, so on and so forth. So from 20 up to the time that you hit 80, and everything past 80 is a blessing. But from 20 to the time that you hit 80, you have to look at that scope and say, is having kids equal more freedom or not? Because when you think of it from the perspective of just in your 20s, no, it may feel like, I don't have more freedom when I have kids. Maybe when you hit 40, I got retired. I'm retiring. I can go run around. I can do whatever I want. Not having kids, blah, blah. But guess what? When you hit from 60 to 80, that block, that 20-year block, you not having kids does not equate to more freedom. It now equates to less freedom. Okay, it requires a lot less. It becomes less freedom by a lot. And you don't realize it now. You could be young. You could still be kind of like you have that young 60s mentality rolling around. But let's say, God blesses you with going from that block of 80 to 100. That's the blessing block of life, 20-year block, where it's not guaranteed. But if you get it, you're fortunate. Guess what? At 80, you can't really move around that much. But guess what? If you have kids, they are throwing you in the car and they're driving you everywhere. Or your grandkids. Hey, listen, grandma, grandpa, jump in the car. Or you could tell them, listen, drive me someplace. Guess what? That's a freedom you won't have, because when you're 80 years old, you're not driving anywhere. You're not in a car. You can't get behind the wheel. You barely can see. You barely could take care of yourself or move around. So you're not the one driving in the car. So you're going to be that old person from 80 to 100. Maybe even earlier than that, maybe even from 70 to going up, that you're sitting around and you can't go anywhere. So now where's that freedom? And trust me, it's going to matter during those years. You might not think it does, because a lot of people don't think they're going to live that long. But when here's the thing you got to understand. Don't say to yourself, I'm not thinking about what happens if I don't make it to 75 and up, because I'm 30 now. That's all that matters. Life goes quick and you're going to reach that point. And when you reach that point, here's what you need to understand. Your life becomes a prison when you are old and you can't do anything. And that's where your kids and the empire you built becomes your saving grace, because they pick you up, they bring you everywhere, they take you everywhere. They bring you all the little adventures that you can't go on, making life feel so much more fulfilled. You know what I mean? You're going to go to the park with the kids? Cool. I'm going to drive you to the park. You're going to sit on the bench and watch the kids play. At least you're getting fresh air. You're not cooped up in the house. Hey, we're going to go on this road trip. We're going here. Take you along. Hey, we're going to the mall. Come along. Cool. Whatever the point is that whatever the case is the point that you're getting a lot more freedom now than if you were just sitting in an old folks home, because no one's going to help you get up. No one's going to throw you in a car, because the old folks person is not at the old folks center, is not going to take you for a drive. They're not doing that. So the next 20 years of your life is sitting around the old folks home, because no one's taking you for a drive. And here's another big thing too that a lot of people don't think about. I want to address this too. When you're in your 30s, sometime even 40s, you say, I got siblings, I got my parents, I got my grandparents, so I'm good. You're looking upwards. But you don't understand, as the ball gets passed along, everyone who is above you dies. Everyone who is side of you, they get old too. And at that point, you start realizing, and they're doing their own thing. At that point, you realize you have to build below you, because eventually everything above you goes away and you become the person who was above you. You become your parents. You become your grandparents. And if you have nothing below you, you have nothing. And with that being said, I'm going to catch you guys inside the next video. Everyone be safe. Think about that and really put that to heart, because to be honest with you, that is your future. Emotional retirement is just as important as financial retirement. Catch you guys in the next video.